Welcome all of you. We're very excited to have you for our June gathering. Um, and today we are going to hear from Miss Madeline DeHart. She was a supervisor of fine arts and world languages over in Vermilion Parish in the Vermilion Parish school system. She recently accepted another position, which brings her back into the classroom. So congratulations on that. Some lucky students over there for sure that will be able to be in your classroom. She is going to present today to us Lâche Pas, Louisiana Heritage Connections. Another wonderful, exciting announcement that we have is we would like to introduce this group to Maria Zarang. She is the new director of the Louisiana Folklife program over at Louisiana Division of the Arts. She was previously the Folk and Traditional Arts Director for the Mississippi Arts Commission from 2017 to 2025. She'll now be with us at the Division of the Arts for the next 40 years at least, if she's going to if she's gonna try to break Maida's record. You gotta go you got to go at least 39 years to break the previous record. So we're so excited to have you with us and in that position. And so, Maria, if you'd like to say a few words, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I'm a little older than when Maida started, so I don't know if I'll make it to 40 years, but yeah, I'm glad to be back in Louisiana. Very excited to be in this program and to be at the Louisiana Division of the Arts and, to work with you all. I'm from Thibodeau, so it's nice to be back home. It's been about 12 years since I've lived in Louisiana now. So very excited and can't wait to listen to this talk today.
Thank you so much. Welcome back home. It's so great to have you with us, and we're looking forward to doing some great work with you. So thanks for being.
Yeah, me too. Thanks,
Congratulations.
Jonathan.
All right, so our management team that gets together to bring all of these programs to you. There's myself. I'm the executive director for the South Louisiana Wetlands Discovery Center. We just heard from Miss Maria Zarang, the new Folklife Program Director over at the Division of the Arts. And we have Dr. Gary LaFleur, who is the R.E. Miller Endowed Professor of Honors Studies at the Center for Bayou Studies at Nicholls State University. Maida Owens, who has shifted into a senior program consultant position for the Bayou Culture Collaborative. So we're very thankful that we get to keep her expertise along with all of us. And then Dr. Rachel Doherty, who's the Assistant Director for Programming and Special Projects at the Center for Louisiana Studies, ULL. This is the slide that sort of expresses our feelings of why we are doing this type of work, why we include culture and planning, why it's so important for us to make sure that the human dimension is represented in all of the coastal land loss and coastal challenge issues that we face. Our partners, we've kind of mentioned them already because these are the organizations represented by the humans that we are. The Center for Bayou Studies over at Nicholls, the Wetlands Discovery Center, Center for Louisiana Studies at University of Louisiana Lafayette, the Louisiana Folklife Program through the Division of the Arts, and of course, the Louisiana Folklore Society. And thank you to our funders that make this program possible. Big thanks goes out to Restore the Mississippi River Delta, the M.J. Sindler Family Fund for Culture and Media, the Louisiana Office of Cultural Development through the Division of the Arts, and the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. We'd like to now focus a little bit attention on our artist spotlight. And for that, I will hand this back over to Miss Maria Zarang.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. And yeah, our spotlight artist this month is Angelica Chavaria, who received a Passing It On grant to lead the Making Mohiganja workshop this past April. And Mohiganja are giant mixed media puppets that accompany parades, processions, and celebrations. They have roots in Mexican culture and date as far back as the 16th century in colonial Spain. Angelica is a member of the Crew de Mayuel, which is a walking carnival crew based in New Orleans. And she led this workshop with 12 of her crew members. They had a great turnout. It was a great program. And they created three new skeleton mojiganjas that are going to parade during the Dia de Muertos procession in New Orleans in November 2025. So check that out if you're available. And overall, we're just really excited to have Angelica and the Crew de Mayuel to be part of the Passing It On program. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. And looking forward to seeing them in that parade. That's going to be beautiful. We'll just go over today's agenda really quick. In a minute, we're going to hear from Miss Madeline DeHart. We then will have some time for questions and answers with her. If you have any topics that you'd like to discuss that are relevant to her presentation, we're going to ask the question that we've been asking all year, our theme of moving forward with intention. We're going to ask Miss Madeline how she moves forward with intention in looking at the issues that we face here. And then we'll get a few working group updates. We'll let you know when those groups are going to be meeting if you're interested in attending any of those meetings. We'll open it up for any announcements that the group may have. And then from about 1 to 1:30, we have an informal discussion with Madeline asking her any other questions that we may have. So, um, with no further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Miss Madeline DeHart, again, the supervisor of fine arts, or forgive me, the former supervisor of fine arts and world languages for Vermilion Parish school system. Now, back in the classroom, and there's going to be some very lucky kids this year over in Vermilion Parish, presenting today Lâche Pas, Louisiana Heritage Connections. Thank you again for being with us, Madeline. Looking forward to your presentation. You're still on mute. I think you might be on mute.
Go.
So, yep, there we go.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that introduction. Yes, I recently have gone back to the classroom, and you're right. My students really love coming to class. I've been teaching a lot of middle school students, and then now this upcoming year, I've been appointed to an elementary school as well. So I'd like to get into that with my curriculum also. But thank you for the opportunity to be able to present today. I was the supervisor in Vermilion Parish for 19 years. And prior to that, I was a band director. So you can change the slide. Today, I'd like to spend some time explaining to you exactly what Lâche Pas is, what it means. Louisiana Heritage Connections is its true name as it's documented on LDOE. I'll briefly share how we implemented it into Vermilion Parish, and then I'd like to offer you some suggestions on how you can initiate it in your school district. I'll give you some ways to fund your initiative and maybe share more resources with you if you'd like. Next slide. So what is Lâche Pas? If you don't know what it means, it just means don't drop or don't lose, meaning the culture. The Louisiana Department of Education recognizes Lâche Pas as a fine arts survey. All students must take an arts elective to graduate, and students can receive that required arts credit towards TOPS and graduation by completing Lâche Pas. The state also recognizes Lâche Pas as part of Interests and Opportunities Initiative, adding to the school's performance score, and some of you might know that as the SPS. Lâche Pas is currently offered at 6 of our Vermilion Parish middle schools, but it's also available at the high school level. and can be adapted for elementary students. Now let's get into the real stuff. The LDOE listed course name is really Louisiana Heritage Connections, but it's simply a means to bring the local culture into an educational framework. We cover 7 modalities, including music, art, dance, history, the French language, our traditions, and our foodways. Now, I emphasize music in this case because I'm a musician by trade, and my educational background is music education. So music drives my lessons. However, a social studies teacher, a French teacher, art teacher, or even simply a person with passion for our culture is eligible to teach it. Okay, next slide. So we start with music. In Lâche Pas, students learn how to play some Cajun and Zydeco music on the accordion, the fiddle, and the guitar. We also incorporate the tifa and the frottoir, which are the triangle and washboard. I teach each instrument for 6 weeks. And then after Christmas break, when we get back, the students decide which instrument they want to play for the rest of the school year. It's usually the one they feel like they most connected with, and they focus on that one and mastering that. I should also tell you that as a result of the Reimagine Innovation Grant, we were able to hire musicians and writers to compile 3 music method books that we use to teach each of these instruments. In the event the teacher is not a musician, he or she can find a plethora of lesson possibilities through the Smithsonian Folkways website, or even locally through Louisiana Voices resource pages that can be found through the Louisiana Division of the Arts website. Maida, you probably know a lot about that. Okay, you can change the slide. Once every 2 or 3 weeks, I introduce an art lesson. While we do use some classical art techniques, I insist that each project must revolve around a Louisiana topic or a Louisiana artist. The Acadiana Center for the Arts was instrumental in creating and sharing beautiful lessons that we incorporate into our classes. Here you can see we replicated a Clementine Hunter's folk art watercolor painting. It's called Zinnias in a Pot. The center picture is our acrylic painting of the St. James bonfires. And the last picture is our mural of our signature mascot, the parish gator. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about that gator. Each of the scales of that gator are shaped like Louisiana's parishes. And that's why we call it the parish gator. We also have some lessons in coastal erosion. We do some Native American pottery. We incorporate the fleur-de-lis. We sculpt birds of Louisiana, etc. There's so many art projects that we are able to engage in that are revolving around Louisiana topics. Okay, you can change the slide. And of course, we need to learn to dance. We learn how to waltz, we 2-step, we do some Zydeco line dances, and we can't go without learning some children's round dances, or as we refer to them, danse ronde. Those were documented by Dr. Catherine Blanchette, who documented this years ago. Some of our danse ronde are over 100 years old. So in our first picture, we have our parish-wide 3rd grade Fado-Do, where every 3rd grader in the parish learns those dances, and we come together and hold a massive Fado-Do. The middle picture is our teacher training. And the last pic is our French immersion students performing those danse ronde for the Lieutenant Governor at our Lâche Pas curriculum unveiling, which we held last February. You can change the slide. Of course, we have to talk about our history when we come to Lâche Pas. We couldn't have a course in culture without sharing our personal history. This is where our students really discover who they are and where they're from. They discover that history is not boring when it's your own. Many of our assignments during this portion of the course are very eye-opening for the students. They come to class with fabulous stories about their personal family culture, And the great part about this is that there are no wrong answers. Next slide. Now, while my French is limited, I'm able to teach them short phrases, or greetings, and some words that they probably hear from Mama and Papa. I teach them enough conversational French so that they're not like a deer in headlights whenever they hear somebody like at the grocery store say, "Comment ça va?" And if they hear any kind of a phrase, they're not just like struck by it. I want them to at least um, have some familiarity with it. And this French portion also opens them up to choose French when they decide on which foreign language to pursue as their elective towards graduation. I must also include that the majority of our songs that we learn are in French. You can change the slide. Our traditions. We spend a lot of time preparing for Mardi Gras. Each student makes their own mask, capuchon, and costume. We learn the Mardi Gras song on our instruments, and we create our own courier. We walk up and down Main Street performing at all the businesses, begging for food. And then we, in true Mardi Gras fashion, we collect those food items, but instead of making the gumbo at the end of the day, we deliver those to the local food bank at the end of Main Street. So the middle picture is Miss Elaine Larcade Borg, who some of you might know. She's demonstrating how to weave brown cotton and allowing students to try, which was a really cool lesson for students. There was not one student who didn't want to try. This is just a really interesting demonstration for them. And the final picture here is Mr. L.J. Delcom teaching our students about growing native plants and their medicinal properties. Another very interesting thing for our students is to learn how to make tonics and tinctures. Okay, you can change the slide. And finally, we always have to include some food ways. The students always request to be able to do a food lesson. And while it's kind of restrictive for us to do our food lessons at school because we don't have access to a full kitchen, there are multiple food projects that we can do. And here you'll see in these pictures, we had one of our schools was able to fry some beignets, and the kids really enjoyed that. But while those lessons are few and far between, sometimes we'll do a lesson where we make butter the old-fashioned way, where you have to whip it yourself. And we've even made our own Creole seasoning, which the students named appropriately, Slap Your Teacher. And I've also cooked pain perdu last. This was the highlight of our year for this past school year, was cooking pain perdu. Okay, the next slide. So how did all of this happen in Vermilion Parish? It was an initiative that evolved over time, no doubt. For years, as the fine arts supervisor, I slowly implemented cultural opportunities as after-school clubs. We have 2 fiddle clubs in our elementary schools. We have had jazz and guitar clubs at our middle schools. And after we were funded by the Reimagine Innovation Grant, we were able to create legitimate teaching materials and formally implement it as a class. Now, at first, it was an elective that students could engage in after school. And currently, we are able to embed these within the instructional day at all 6 of our middle schools. And soon, many students soon what we'll have is a growth from 14 students who were originally in the first class, and now we're going to have 300. So it's really expanded over time. You can change the slide. If you wish to pursue something like this in your school, I highly recommend starting simple, but you will need to find someone to champion that initiative, someone who will pursue it relentlessly. You will need to find someone to teach it. Those two might be the same person. And you'll need donations and grants, of course. Even better would be to have the school board implement it. If they would need to see a model in person, please schedule a visit with me. Otherwise, we could find some other ways to do it. And here's how I've done it in the past with small stuff. You can change the slide. Like I said, if the school board does not see the vision initially, there are other ways to implement it. And you'll see probably very many logos of agencies that you've already applied to in the past. But here are some in case you don't recognize. I've applied to Louisiana, New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, to the ACA for the Louisiana Project Grants, to the FACE Initiative, through the Atchafalaya Project Grants, and of course through Louisiana Division of the Arts. Okay, you can change the slide. So we're always working to tweak and refine our curriculum. We're always looking for more lessons because Louisiana has a plethora of cultural projects that we can always engage in. This upcoming year, I'm going to delve into writing the elementary curriculum, like I was telling you before. And our music books are shareable. They're not yet ready for sale, but they are shareable in hard format. We offer teacher trainings each summer, and I can send you information if you'd like to attend. And I'm always available to follow up with support for whoever decides to teach this, or if you need somebody to go and talk to your upper administration or possibly your board members to get this into your school system. Next slide. And this is how you can reach me. And now I'll open myself up for questions.
Excellent. Thank you so very much, Madeline, for that presentation.
Thank you.
And explaining all that, because now I'm looking at the screen and I see the alligator with the French music method book, and now I have the knowledge that that's a whole bunch of different parishes on that alligator that made up that artwork. So I think that's beautiful.
Thanks.
Anyone have any questions for Madeline right now? Yes, Gary.
That was awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. I was wondering if you felt like you had to create that all independently from your own heart, or is there other states or other regions that are doing something slightly different, that, or is there a chance that you're in a network of other similar projects?
Currently, I am not in another network because it's so innovative. However, I am aware that there are mariachi groups in Texas. I don't think that any of what they're doing is a good curriculum model, because what we're doing is so specialized. In those music books that you see, and you guys know this, our music was never written down. So we had to convert that oral tradition into some kind of a notation. And so when we converted that oral tradition into a notation, we had to create our own notation system. But we knew what we wanted to do already. I didn't necessarily need a model to find, to know what I wanted to do. It was all in my head. But I did need to seek out professionals in history, professionals in French, professionals who are familiar with writing, and professionals who are those people who perform this music on a regular basis. So not necessarily an existing model. I feel like this would be the model if it were to be used in other regions, like maybe for bluegrass and mariachi. But no existing model that we're aware of.
Mr. Moore, it's good to see you. You have a question?
Yes, thanks, Madeline, for the presentation. Just a prefatory comment, which is that Chad Huval's been, you mentioned teaching the few weeks of guitar, a few weeks of fiddle, a few weeks of accordion. Chad Huval's been teaching a class like that at UL for a few years to freshmen, trying to get them interested so that they would continue with the trad music program we started there at UL. But it's really great to see that you're doing this at the lower levels, at the K-12 levels, or at least the middle school. And I was curious, you mentioned that, that this fulfills an arts elective, the sort of folklore overview, tradition, culture overview. And then there's a follow-up for kids who want to continue with the music and get more into it. So when they continue with the music, is that something that also happens during the school hours and is a class, or is that after school activity?
The entire course is an elective that students can take during the school day. We currently don't offer anything after school. It does have potential for the high school to have something after school. But I wanted to tell you, Mark, that I've reached out to the trad music program, and we feel like we're going to be able to, and this may be premature, so don't spread this gossip, but we feel like we can get some of those trad music students to get sort of what's called a micro credential for when they do graduate by attending a simple seminar where we can equip them with this particular genre, and also reach out to some art majors and some music ed majors to see if they would be interested in getting that micro credential so that they can come into our schools and feel the confidence. Okay, they need to have that confidence of, oh yes, okay, if I can teach the bassoon, which I don't play on a regular basis, I can teach the fiddle, I can teach the guitar, I can teach the accordion. So we're going to be meeting with some of those students very soon, probably in the fall, to get them equipped with a little seminar that gives them the knowledge that here's your resources and here's how to use those resources. What do you say you come and visit our school and spend a couple weeks during your internship, and spend those 2 weeks with us.
Yeah, so those kids that are learning music and then they want to continue after the first semester to maybe get a little band together or something like that. Is that something
Oh
you
yeah.
do during the school day also?
We in the class, I like to emphasize small groups. Instead of me facilitating everything, I like to let the students take the control. So yes, they do perform in what I would say small groups, kind of like a jam session, that if you will,
Yeah.
so that they're ready for a full jam session. But I would really like it if they could mingle with professionals on a more regular basis. Right now, since it's so new in our school system, most of my students are beginners, but it does work like band and choir, where a student can take it for multiple years and become more apt to play more complex parts. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Rachel, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Madeline. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was really thorough, in spite of really just being an overview, because I mean, necessarily curriculum writing, having a grant, teacher training, all these different classes is so complex. I have a lot of questions generally. I feel like in the future, I may just have to have a longer conversation with you, but what I'll ask you now is, it seems like I've seen on social media in the recent past where y'all have done calls for teacher trainings. But I've also been curious about curriculum writing. How do you go about creating curriculum? Are you having teachers that are currently Lâche Pas teachers write the curriculum with you? Are you like contracting that? Are you looking for people to write curriculums? And I mean across disciplines. So not just for music, but like for French, that's what I do. So
Okay.
I'm not just curious about that, but I'm also thinking about like for future implementation in other parishes where they have a lot of French and they have like French as a resource and maybe like folk life as a resource, not so much music. Parishes like Le Fouche and Terrebonne, for example.
So this is sort of a model that can be customizable for each part of the state. So each region would have its own topics that it would like to focus on. For example, you know, in Vermilion Parish, we've got people who are famous from Vermilion Parish. And of course, we took that opportunity to make sure that students could connect with people they know and who their parents and family know. So we emphasize our local famous people. But in any other part of the state, you could take this model and write the songs that would come from people who are famous from that part of the state. But also, let me reiterate that I did not write this by myself. We had professionals. We had a PhD in history to write our history lessons. We had a French teacher who taught at LSU to write our French lessons. We have traditionalists and our tradition bearers are people who have been doing this all of their lives. None of which claim to be masters in all 7 modalities. So each modality had its own professional in that modality or discipline, if you will, to create the lessons for that particular discipline.
So I'm just curious, like, what it looks like to build something like this. About how long were y'all doing this, like with the curriculum writing, or was it something you added gradually?
Okay, very good question. By stipulation from the grant, we had to spend the funding within 3 years. So the first year was flying by the seat of our pants because I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to get it in the hands of students. I knew what we needed to do. I knew we had the right staff members to implement it. And while we were implementing it, we were writing it. So the second year, we're kind of tweaking and writing it formally. So that's when I hired the professionals, the people who actually sat down and wrote these portions were writing it during the second year, and we were tweaking it during the third year. But yes, we had to spend a lot of funding to pay those professionals.
Okay, so you were able to implement it like before it was perfected, and then just kind of integrate the perfecting and paying professionals all at once. Okay. Yeah. It's interesting.
So maybe if I were to give you a better timeline of how it unfolded, that would help answer your questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Send me an email.
I will.
Okay.
I'm going to anyway. Yeah, to have you come talk again for something that the center is wanting to highlight in the fall. But yeah, I've always been really curious about this project. And of course, Vermilion Parish, it's really close to me. In fact, my assistants in the graduate program in French for the last 2 years at the Center for Louisiana Studies have been Vermilion Parish natives. And like, yeah, they all, a lot of the youth, and I'd say when I like in their 20s coming out of Vermilion Parish right now are very impressive to me. They have a good command of French. They're really in touch with their Cajun heritage. A lot of them play music. So I'm just, it's kind of a phenomenon, and I'm fascinated with the fact that this is perhaps able to be replicated, but that might be lofty. It gives me hope.
It is.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of hope though, because I'm just seeing some of the fruits of this, and I'm just like, wow.
It's great. It's great. So goal accomplished. If you're seeing it, then it's happening sooner than I expected. Great.
That leads me to my question. You had mentioned, and forgive me if I get these numbers wrong, you started out and there were like 8 kids or 14 kids, something like that. Now you're at 300 students participating. And so my question was about the impact of that, and have you seen the benefits of the work? But it seems like Rachel kind of just answered that question because she seems to be seeing the benefits of your work. But with you being there directly, what have you seen in terms of those impacts?
So far, and I'm sure you guys, because we share these values, would know that there's so much qualitative benefits to this. I can see myself in the near future spending some time and trying to create some real quantitative data that would show that students really want to come to school because of Lâche Pas. That their the attendance rate would go up because of Lâche Pas. I'm just going to give you a few little anecdotal things. I had a student who had to be checked out of school for a dentist appointment, but he insisted his mom bring him back to school so that he could come to Lâche Pas. I mean, who wants to come back to school? So, I just said that just impacted me. So I said, maybe we can get some quantitative data. But I do see myself spending more time creating opportunities for elementary students to kind of build them, and then to also adapt or customize this for maybe more advanced players in high school so that they could concentrate more on this, and for those who do see a future in being a lifetime musician, giving them more opportunities to perform, like Mark was asking, with other professionals. We do have guests come in on a regular basis, professional guests, so that these students can feel what it's like. And then we go out in the public and perform with them. We tell them, you're going to go gig with somebody famous like Steve Riley. You're going to gigs, you're going to get to open for Gino Delafosse. And so it's really exciting for students to feel this. And so I just would really like it if there was a chance that more students would have access to it. I know that would come with a lot of funding because, accordions don't buy themselves, but I think it would be so beneficial for the state for the future of keeping our students here once they graduate. I think it would be so beneficial for students just to know who they are and where they're from. And I think it would be good for tourism.
Yeah.
If these students could get a job in this. And it's also great for our artists and musicians who are, looking for work all the time, looking for work. But those are the same people who we can hire to come as guests. Those are the same people we can hire to come into the school system as teachers.
Yeah. Last question before we move on, unless somebody else has another question, but I see the copies of the book. You had made mention that they're not necessarily available just yet for purchase, but that they were available online. Is that something that people can go to lashpa.org and download those books, or how would they get access if they wanted to use them in their classrooms?
Well, let me correct maybe what I was not clear about. They are available for me to share with you in hard format. They are not available digitally at this point, but I can share a hard copy with you guys if you're interested.
And is that when you say shared, do you have a limited number of these books that were printed that
Yes.
we can borrow and then we have to
Yes.
get back? Okay,
You can
that's
borrow them indefinitely.
now I guess here's the other question is, you know, there some curriculums are not open source, so you have to pay to be able to use them. Is the intent of Lashpa to will this be open source and a free curriculum, or is this something that you would have to pay for, which is equally honorable, you know?
Mhm. It's always been my intention to make it available to anybody who wants it, to make copies of whatever page they need to use. However, it is not in my personal ownership. It belongs to the Vermilion Parish school system. So yeah, that school board gets to decide how it's disseminated. And I would think that it's going to be something you can buy.
Okay. And so is anything available yet for like let's say the French immersion school in Pointe-aux-Trembles wants to um use some of this stuff, some of the curriculum. Is it ready for them to receive to be able to implement, or is there still a few, you know,
There's a few
know the
tweaks that
question I'm
need to
asking.
be made.
Yeah.
I tell people, yes, things are shareable. They're kind of like hidden in different digital folders, but there are some specific things like if you know a particular activity you want to implement, I can share that with you. None of the other portions other than the music is what I would say in a format that's shareable professionally.
I got you.
At this point, we're still tweaking. We're still tweaking.
Okay. Yes, Maria. Oh,
Okay.
you're on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just turned off the mute. Thanks, Madeline. That was really great. I was wondering if you had ever pursued any funding from the Kellogg Foundation or Mellon Foundations.
No, but thank you for those,
Yeah,
that
I think
plug, that
that
heads up.
Yeah, I think that you should consider looking at those. They're national foundations that kind of focus on like education, arts, humanities. And my coworker Charlotte Smelser, well, my former coworker at the Mississippi Arts Commission, she did a lot of stuff in bringing arts into the curriculum in Mississippi, and she got funding through Kellogg and Mellon. And for the, well, in recent years, Kellogg and Mellon they want to expand their funding in like southern states and maybe more rural communities that they haven't reached yet. That at least in Mississippi, that seemed to be like a focus of theirs. So being that we're in Louisiana and Vermilion Parish is like a rural area, that could possibly make you competitive. But yeah, check out Kellogg and Mellon. I'll put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Glad. I'm always looking.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Any other yes, Rachel.
I have a tiny related question. Have you ever pursued funding from like a transnational organization like the Centre de la Francophonie des Amériques or
Only through the base grant,
okay.
the dual language.
Yeah. I'm just curious, like I'm curious for possible, other parishes implementing something similar if maybe some of these Francophone transnational agencies would be interested in funding this for language revitalization. But anyway, just wondering if that was the route y'all went.
It's definitely something I would pursue.
Excellent. Any other questions? And if you do have other questions, if you'll stick around, we'll get to the informal part of our presentation today, and you can ask Madeline. We'll continue that conversation. So, Madeline, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, wonderful work. There's some lucky kids over in Vermilion. Thank you for the work that you do. And the insight that you have to produce a curriculum to keep all these things alive. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So, you don't get away that easy from us. So this is our next question.
Okay.
Again, the theme of this year for the Bayou Culture gatherings has been how do we move forward with intention? We have so many distractions and disruption in our daily lives. It sometimes becomes a little bit challenging to transfer our culture to the next generation of folks. So what is your strategy for moving forward with intention?
I think I need some kind of a formal action plan, but I need the input of other people and other organizations because there's often I feel like we are ships in an ocean, all sailing with no direction. We're all doing our own things and we never touch base. This opportunity that you guys just have created with this gathering, we're able to at least be a hub and come together and share what's going in my part of the state, what's going on in your part of the state. But I think by connecting like this, we can know what's going on and maybe help market those things
Yeah.
across the state, because I'd love to see it more accessible to other students. I would love to see that legislation be passed to fund this for anybody who wants to have access to this. This is about our state, and it doesn't necessarily have to be focusing on what goes on Vermilion Parish. It can be what goes on at what happened at the Louisiana hayride back in North Louisiana. It could be what happens in the Creole community of New Orleans. It could be the Creole community of North Natchitoches area. So I just think that a compulsory course would be wouldn't be beyond reach to have students know who they are and where they're from, not just about the Louisiana history that they don't necessarily connect with.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't thought about in terms of the um when I was in school, I'm dating myself, but we had to take Louisiana history. That was a whole class. I don't know that I don't know that that's even a thing anymore. And that's a beautiful thing of what you just said, like incorporating the history, but throw in the culture that makes it a little bit more meaningful, I think, for the students. That's a Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that when we get in just a few more minutes. If let's put a pin in that and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Thank you again for your response to that question. Um, all right, so a little bit information on the working groups that we have. If you are interested in our French language preservation group, the meetings will resume in August on Tuesdays at 6. The conveners are Ivy Matthew and Amy Chose Monnier. So if you're interested in joining those meetings, you can reach out to us and we'll tell you how to get in touch with them. They've taken the summer off. They've been doing some amazing work, so please check in with them. The Culture and Coastal Planning Group meets every other Monday at 2 p.m. The convener is Aaron there, and then there's Artists and Tradition Bearers. They're also on a temporary break, but the convener there is Charles, and then Protecting Collections is the third Thursday of every month at 2, and PUD is the convener of that group. And then, of course, we've got the Preparing Receiving Communities group, and they meet the third Tuesday of every month at 2, and that's Madeline and Rachel. So if any of those topics are of interest to you, please get in touch with us, and we can put you in touch with the conveners of that group. Next month, we're very happy to have Dr. Katie Ross, who is a senior data analyst who will be with us Friday, July 25th at noon. Once again, she's with the Cowan Institute over at Tulane University. So very happy to have that coming up. And then announcements. Anyone have any announcements? If you raise your hand virtually, or you can post it in the chat. I'm thinking if there's anything exciting going on, but yes, Rachel.
I will put this in the chat, but in Lafayette, there has been launched a French and Creole theater company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Kirby Jambon, who is originally from Lafourche Parish, but is a veteran educator in Lafayette Parish, now works in St. Landry, also a theater teacher. Last year he began to start a French and Creole theater company, but he had to step back. He had to take care of his mother's estate. She passed away. But Cité des Arts, which is a nonprofit community theater, approached him again because they really want this to happen. And so it's officially on. I'm going to share the Facebook group with y'all because even if you're not in Lafayette Parish, we're starting to have committee meetings for organizing and writing the play or adapting a play into French and Creole. But yeah, you can just follow our progress because there will eventually be auditions, even if you're not too far from Lafayette. In the fall, we'll be having auditions, open auditions to anyone. You don't have to speak French or Creole fluently. If you're learning, being in theater is a great way to learn. But additionally, we are going to have a performance at Festival International in Lafayette next April. But we would like support from outside of this area. We would like people following and even monetary support so that we can bring a production outside of Lafayette, especially to areas where we know there are a lot of French speakers, like down the Bayou in Lâche Parish, but there are much fewer public programs and resources and activities. We would love to have a production down there. But anyway, I'll put the Facebook group in the chat and y'all can just follow along.
That's wonderful. That's a great announcement. Let us know if you've got anything ready to go by this October, because I think Rougarou Fest, I mean, it's outside. I don't know like if the performances can be on an outdoor stage kind of thing, or if this is going to need to be in a theater.
This is like indoor. There's going to be like set designs and stuff. Yeah. So, and then no, we're just going to be having auditions in like November. So yeah, but maybe
Yes.
maybe for next year. Actually, the Rougarou play was brought up in the creative committee meeting yesterday. So we
Nice.
were like, let's, yeah, that Rougarou that you and I both know, Jonathan, we're like, we should
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
about translating that, you know, fully into French and doing a revival. So we'll see though. But yeah. But yeah, the link is in the chat for the Facebook group, so y'all can follow along and add your input, you know?
Oh, that's wonderful, because we also have a community theater here that has, it's an indoor theater that that would be a perfect venue for them, or they have a season of shows, but it's not all the time running. Having them to come into Homa even and do a performance would be really cool. Yeah,
Yeah, I would really like to. I mean, we've got to do the initial production, but as
Yeah.
part of this theater company, I mean, this is what they did in the 70s, and it's kind of based on a model of a theater company that existed among Cajuns in the like Acadiana region. They did take productions to other parts of the state, and we're very much modeling what we're doing on the people that came before in like kind of one of the heights of like the Renaissance. So
That's awesome. That's very cool. Congratulations on being a part
I
of
mean,
that.
I'm just doing it. Like
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm not running it, but thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. For us at the Discovery Center, we have coming up an environment and art program that's going to be led by Brooks Frederick, who is originally from Terrebonne Parish, but he is an artist in New York now, working and selling his art there. He's going to be coming back for the summer. The workshop is already fully booked. It's two full, like it's a Monday through a Thursday, and then another Monday through a Thursday. But we're also going to do a 1 day Saturday workshop. Again, it's all booked up, which is fantastic, but we're really looking forward to having him do that with us. So that's announcements for us. Anybody else? All right. Um, Here are a few ways to stay in touch with us. You can join our Facebook group. You can also scan that QR code there. You can email us. And if there are any particular working groups that you're interested in, we'll be happy to put you in touch with those folks as well. So, thank you again for being with us today. We hope you'll join us again next month.